You walk into someone's house, and it's clean. Not just tidy, clean. And before you even sit down, something moves in you. Something quiet. Something that doesn't quite feel like admiration. It feels like a question you're not ready to answer. You've told yourself it doesn't matter, that you've been busy, that the mess is temporary, a side effect of a life that's full, that's moving, that has more important things to manage than whether the countertops are wiped down or the floor has been swept in the last 2 weeks. And you believe that. For the most part, you believe that. But there are moments, usually late at night or early in the morning when the light hits the room a certain way, where you look around at the space you live in and you feel something you can't quite name. It's not shame, exactly. It's not guilt. It's more like a low hum, a background frequency that's been playing for months now, underneath everything else, just quiet enough that you can ignore it, but never quite silent enough to forget. You scroll past videos of organized pantries and color-coded closets, and you feel it again, that hum. And then you close the app and tell yourself those people have more time, more money, different brains, different lives. But the hum doesn't stop. And somewhere under all the explanations, under all the very reasonable, very logical reasons why your space is the way it is, you wonder if the people who live differently aren't just more organized. You wonder if they're thinking differently. Here's what you've probably assumed for a long time: that it's about discipline, that the people with clean homes are simply more motivated, more structured, more fundamentally together in some way that you either have or you don't. And if you've spent any time holding yourself against that image, you already know what that assumption does to you. It doesn't light a fire, it just makes you smaller. Because when you frame it as a personality trait, something you're born with or without, it stops being a problem you can solve and starts being a verdict you live under. And you've been living under it for a while now. But here's what nobody explained to you, what no one ever actually sat down and said. The way you relate to your physical space almost never comes from who you are. It comes from what you learned, from what you watched, from what you absorbed before you were old enough to question any of it. Think about the home you grew up in. Not to blame anyone, just to look clearly for a moment. Was cleaning something that happened with ease, woven into the rhythm of the week, or was it reactive, something that exploded into the house during stress or criticism or the threat of someone's anger? Was a tidy space ever a signal that things were okay? Was a messy one ever a signal that they weren't? Because your nervous system was tracking all of that, long before you had language for it. You adapted without realizing it. You built a relationship with your environment, not from conscious choice, but from the emotional atmosphere of a place you had no power to leave. And what that environment taught you, about what normal looks like, about what you deserve to live in, about what effort is even worth, that teaching didn't stay in the past. It followed you into every apartment, every room, every space you've tried to keep since. It felt normal, because it was familiar. But here's what nobody tells you. And this is where everything shifts, if you're willing to stay with it. The people who keep their spaces clean are not more disciplined than you. They are more settled. And those are completely different things. Discipline is something you push from the outside. It's the grit your teeth, force yourself through version of doing something. And it works sometimes, for a while. But you already know what happens to habits built purely on willpower. One hard week, one disruption, one night where you have nothing left and the whole structure collapses. Not because you failed, because willpower was never designed to carry that weight alone. What those other people have, and what feels invisible from the outside, is a nervous system that doesn't experience their environment as a source of low-grade threat. They look at a pile of dishes and feel a mild tension that pulls them toward resolution. Not dread, not overwhelm, just the quiet discomfort of something unfinished, and the equally quiet satisfaction of finishing it. You look at the same dishes and feel something heavier, something that doesn't quite match the actual size of the task. And when that happens, when the pile of laundry becomes an emotional experience, when a cluttered counter somehow feels like evidence of your entire character, it's not because you're weak. It's because your nervous system has learned over years to read your environment through a different lens. And here's the part that matters most. That lens is not permanent. It's a pattern. And patterns can be seen, And once they're truly seen, not criticized, not fought, just seen, they start to lose their grip. Think about the last time you sat down to do something that mattered to you, something you genuinely wanted to work on, and think about how it felt to sit in a cluttered space and try to begin. That restless, scattered, can't quite start a feeling. You probably called it procrastination or laziness, or told yourself you just weren't focused enough that day. But what was actually happening was your brain was spending energy before you'd even opened a tab, processing visual noise, cataloging the unfinished things in the periphery, managing a background hum of incompletion that your conscious mind had long stopped registering, but your body hadn't. The space was working against you, not as metaphor, literally, physiologically. Your environment was pulling on your attention in 100 small directions before you'd done a single thing. And when that happened enough times, when sitting down to think in your own space consistently felt harder than it should, you drew a conclusion about yourself, about your capacity, about what you were and weren't capable of. That conclusion was the real damage, not the mess itself, the story the mess told you about who you were. And the story kept going. Because here's the loop that nobody draws out clearly enough for you. The clutter makes it harder to think. The difficulty thinking makes the cleaning feel more overwhelming. The overwhelm creates avoidance, and the avoidance, every time you look at the pile and turn away, sends a signal deep into your nervous system that says, this is too much for you. Not in words, just in the shape of what you do or don't. And every day that passes without the thing being addressed, it grows slightly heavier. Not physically, psychologically. The pile of laundry you avoided Monday is a different emotional object by Friday. It is accumulated avoidance. It has weight that has nothing to do with the clothes. This is why motivation alone doesn't fix it. You can watch 100 videos about organization systems and feel genuinely fired up and start strong and still find yourself 3 weeks later exactly where you started. Because the system was never the problem. The loop was the problem. And motivation doesn't interrupt a loop, it just gives you a running start at it. What interrupts a loop is seeing it, clearly, without flinching, not hating yourself for it, not resolving to do better, just looking at it the way you'd look at something that happened to someone you cared about, with recognition, without verdict. Here is the uncomfortable part. And it's uncomfortable because it removes a certain comfort you may not have realized you were holding on to. You are not too busy for this. Some of the most genuinely busy people alive live in spaces that feel peaceful and clear. You're not too tired. You're not built wrong. You are repeating what feels familiar. You are living in a physical space that matches an emotional state you have carried for a long time. And because the match is so complete, it stopped feeling like a pattern ages ago. It started feeling like reality, like just the way you are. But it isn't who you are. It's what you learned to be. And there's a version of you, not a perfect one, just a slightly freer one who knows the difference. The version of you that you've been protecting, the one who doesn't have to try, who gets to stay in the familiar difficulty rather than face the unfamiliar effort of change, that version is not keeping you safe. It's keeping you still. And 5 years from now, if the pattern stays intact, you'll still be in someone else's house feeling that quiet hum, still explaining it away, still telling yourself it doesn't matter, while something in you knows it does. So here is where you are right now. You can leave with the understanding that this goes deeper than habits and systems, that it's rooted in your nervous system, your history, the emotional atmosphere of rooms you lived in long ago, and let that understanding become its own kind of staying still, a more sophisticated version of the same loop. Or you can take the one thing that actually changes any of this, the moment of genuine seeing. Not a resolution, not a system, not a plan, just the clear, honest recognition that what you've been calling a mess problem was never really about cleaning. It was about what you believe you're capable of, what you believe you deserve to live in, what you've never been shown is possible for someone who learned what you learned in the place you learned it. The question isn't whether you can have a different relationship with your space. You already know you can. The question is whether you're willing to stop treating the pattern as a personality, whether you're willing to look at the loop without flinching and say,
not with self-criticism, not with urgency, just with quiet honesty. I see it now. The mess will still be there when this ends. It will ask you the same question it always has. What you answer with, that's the only thing that's ever been yours to choose. Your mind isn't the problem. It's the pattern.